lovely friends, good afternoon. Come and sit down with me and don't leave too soon. Thank you for stopping in, thanks for saying hi. Together we can make a difference if we try. Together we can make a difference if we try. Hello there, my lovely friends. Good afternoon. Come and sit down with me and don't leave too soon. Thank you for stopping in. Thanks for saying hi. Together we can make a difference if we try.
Hello, welcome in everybody. Happy Monday. If you're on Eastern time or points east, happy Monday afternoon. If you're on Central or Mountain or Pacific time, happy morning, happy Monday morning. Still, let's see, it's still 9:30 on the West Coast. Oh, that's still early for a Monday. Hi, Rachel. Tammy, hello, my friend. Welcome in. I have my virtual background on. I'm sitting in the woods in Indiana, but it's still morning. Seeking Justice, welcome in. Thank you for joining us. Always good to see you in chat. So it's Monday. It's Monday already. Can you believe it? Had a good day yesterday. Hope everybody had a good weekend. It is serene and peaceful in the woods, in certain woods in Indiana. Not all the woods, but most of the woods. And there are lots of woods in Indiana. And Salty, welcome in. Good to see you, my friend.
Hello, how are you this morning?
Outstanding. How are you doing?
I'm doing okay. My grandson's home today, not feeling good, so I just decided to reschedule my live till tomorrow. I don't want to be interrupted in case he doesn't feel good. But he's taking a nap right now, so I thought, yeah, I'll go ahead and jump over here and see what you got going on today.
We got a few things to talk about. Obviously, we saw a couple of big things go down in the news over the weekend, especially like overnight in Idaho.
Yes, isn't that crazy?
So tragic.
It
we'll
really
cover that
is.
a little bit. Yeah. And I used to be a firefighter, and I know when those guys go in there to start fighting those wildfires, brush fires, they go in pretty much raw. Like they don't have backup. If somebody's going to start what that guy did, there's not much you can do about it.
And they're not expecting that, right? They're expecting to go in to fight a fire, not to be ambushed.
Right. So we'll cover that a little bit. We'll spend a little bit of time on that. I obviously don't have a whole lot more than what we saw in the original coverage and then in the press conferences that they held. They did a pretty good job covering it in the press conferences, though, and explaining it. So we'll let them explain it.
Yeah, I felt the same way. I saw I think I went to sleep before the final or the last press conference. So I saw it early this morning. So.
Yeah. And then I do have a special treat, though, because Lauren Matthias of Hidden True Crime did an amazing interview with Mike Watkiss. And he is a legendary reporter. He's an award-winning reporter. He's been covering the FLDS for decades. he covered Warren Jeffs, and he covered the other guy that, to be honest, I didn't know a whole lot about until his interview with Lauren. And she gave me permission to air some of the clips from that interview. So we're going to check those out, and we are going to learn more about the FLDS. I guarantee it.
Yeah.
Just such an amazing interview. He's such an amazing reporter. And like I said yesterday, I'm still kicking myself because I met him he was there for both of Lori's trials. And we talked a little bit here and a little bit there and chatted some, not anything serious, just kind of like people sitting in the media pool chatting. And I finally got up the courage, like the last couple of days of trial. I was going to approach him and I was going to be like, hey, if you ever want to come on my channel and do an interview, I would be honored. He didn't show up for the last couple of days of trial. No. Yeah. So I wasn't able to contact him. He's probably going to be there for sentencing. So I'll try again on July 25th.
Yeah. And it's because, like I told you when we first started talking about Lori Vallow's case, like a long time ago, you and I told you that from the Idaho cases, Lauren had done such a good deep dive on the LDS, right? And the different things. And I'm like, why is nobody besides her talking about this? And then when we do talk about it, I come away, like I've told you a couple times, I come away confused. Are we pretending Lori and Chad had nothing to do with religion? Or are we going to accept it and talk about it? Because it's not comfortable for people to accept that they were following a religion. It's easier to say, oh, it was just sex and money. And I feel like it was way more than that. I will die on that hill.
And you have an award-winning journalist who agrees with you. Mike Watkiss 100% agrees with you.
Well, awesome. Go Mike.
I honestly, when I first met him, I had no idea who he was. And Trace on the case told me, oh yeah, he's done a lot of work on the FLDS. I'm like, okay, that's cool. But he's been covering the FLDS for like 40 years.
Yeah.
Like for real. He's an OG.
Yeah. I looked at a lot of Lauren's coverage back during Lori's Idaho trial. And that just sent me down a lot of rabbit holes, and I went to a lot of websites and checking out the LDS and different things of that nature. And I've always known there was people it's not comfortable to talk about the religious aspect, I guess, but it is what it is. I don't see why we should get around it. You know what I mean? You can't get around it, in my opinion.
No, and we shouldn't.
Mm-mm.
And one of the main reasons why we shouldn't get around that aspect is because they use that aspect to control the women and the young ladies and the children that are in their care. They use that religious aspect for that. And then those children and young women are abused and all kinds of other things that are just horrible. And it's still going on today.
Yeah, and I'm old enough to know that I've seen the documentaries on Warren Jeffs. I've seen all the things. It's always been out there for everyone to explore, and I don't know. This case just took on a life of its own. It was just so much easier to say, the sex and the money. And I'm like, those were just the bonuses, people. So good for him for taking that deep dive and looking at, and maybe people open their eyes to it more, because it's not that I'm blaming LDS or even FDLS for Lori and Chad, but I'm telling you, Lori and Chad had a lot of religious beliefs people aren't ready to accept.
Well, when we get to that interview, if I hit my timestamps correctly, I think you will hear Mike relate Lori and Chad's crazy cult to FLDS and say they're not all that unsimilar. They didn't wear prairie dresses.
Exactly.
But the manipulation and control was very, very similar. Yeah. But first, let's get into the Idaho firefighter ambush. Sad case, and obviously, I hate saying thoughts and prayers because it's just so cliched now. But I just wish their families the fastest path to grieving and recovery as they can get, and honor the lives of the public servants that gave their life in their duty.
Yes, I always say I send prayers for peace to families who lost a loved one.
Right.
because my simple thoughts and prayers are not enough. I know what they need because I've been there. You need peace, and at some point you want that, and you will get it, and that's all I can pray for people. Yeah, I don't like thoughts and prayers, another shooting. No, I'm not down with that either.
Let's see. Boop, boop, boop. Of course, that's the hot topic.
Dude, I'm so looking forward to it. I know I'm ready to put Lori down, but you know what? I want to see what Nate has to ask. I want to see Nate's questions. I saw some clips, he's put out a little bit here and there. This is going to be spicy. It's going to be very spicy.
I think he's probably the right guy to ride that edge between being too spicy and not too spicy that she won't cooperate with the interview. I think he's the right guy for that.
She says it's been a long time coming. Yeah, Lori, it has. From the man who chased you to Hawaii to ask you where your kids are to now you're going to sit down and have that interview. And I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. That's East Idaho news. And before that, so Megan Connor has an interview that she did yesterday, like a 4-hour interview with somebody from the church that she said helped her connect the final dots on how Lori and Chad ended up where they ended up. So that's before Nate's interview. And then after Nate's interview with Lori, she's going to have another extra segment, I think, on our members only thing.
Is that coming up tonight for her?
Yes, tonight before Nate's interview. So if we can find a way to put up Megan's channel up there too.
Yeah.
That's going to be an interesting interview because she's connecting some more of those religious dots that we all have questions about. Even me, being former LDS, I still have so many questions.
Yeah.
And if Megan is having her questions answered by this interview, then I'm down for it. All right.
She doesn't have it scheduled yet, I don't think.
Okay. Well, let's keep an eye out for that. Make sure you have notifications turned on our channel. Make sure you're subscribed and you have notifications on for
Forrest
third verse.
Thank you, Forrest. I was about to drop that, but I see Forrest is on it as usual. Thank you.
All right. Here we go with the news stories. Horrible.
Is really just getting underway after what the sheriff has started as an emergency response to a brush fire turned into an ambush on first responders in Idaho. 2 firefighters were killed. The sheriff says a 3rd firefighter was also shot and is still fighting for his life. Calls into emergency dispatch in the midst of it paint a terrifying scene of the moments they realized that they were under attack.
Some law enforcement right now, there's an active shooter zone. They're shot. BC3's down, BC1's down. Everybody's shot up here. Law enforcement, code 3 now up here.
The ambush sparked a huge response from law enforcement. More than 300 officers from various agencies and neighboring counties were all called up to help. At one point, officers exchanged gunfire with the suspect, but it was more than 6 hours after that first fire call that his body was found. This morning, fire crews are still working to contain the fire that he allegedly started, still burning on Idaho's Canfield Mountain. CNN's Julia Vargas Jones is live in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho with the very latest. What are you learning?
Good morning, Kate. Well, the plan today from authorities is to go back to that location where the body of the shooter was found for further investigations. What are they looking for? They're looking for more weapons and more ammunition that gunman may or may not have had with him. Now, they had to remove the body from that location relatively quickly, they said last night in a press conference, because of the threat of that fire. So we have not learned any further details about who this gunman was or what were the weapons that he had with him. But we did hear from the sheriff of Kootenai County here in Coeur d'Alene talking about the very nature of this attack and what that was like for the firefighters that were responding on the scene.
This was a total ambush. These firefighters did not have a chance. When you have an environment where you don't know where the bullets are coming from because of the trees and the shrubbery and what have you, it is daunting for police officers, let alone firefighters who are there just to put out the fire.
Unimaginable, Kate, what these firefighters went through. And now this community is also left with so many questions as the investigation continues in the coming days. Now, I do want to share with you one interesting detail is that authorities did use his cell phone, the shooter's cell phone, to ping his location. And as you mentioned, they had exchanged fire with him, but that for another 90 minutes is how they tried to triangulate him until he eventually was neutralized. We don't know how he died at this time, but that fire in that location continues to burn. It is now called the Nettleton Gulch Fire, and authorities will be going up today as daylight breaks here.
Much more to learn. Julia, thank you so much for being there for us.
And we actually do have, as of 30 minutes ago, they have identified the shooter. So let me pull that up real quick. Of course, it disappeared the second that I said that. It's going to take me 30 seconds here.
Oh, you're good.
It's on YouTube. There we go. News Nation has it on YouTube. So
Yeah.
I don't think I don't think I'll get copyright stricken for that.
No,
So
you
hold on a
won't.
second.
Not with News Nation.
Okay. So we'll
Shouldn't.
play
I
that
never
one.
have.
There we go. Authorities identify suspect.
News on that investigation and the ambush of several firefighters in Idaho. The Associated Press is now identifying the suspect as Wes Raleigh. The station is working to independently confirm that. He was found dead after killing 2 firefighters and shot another one who is now fighting for his life. The shooter essentially lured in these firefighters by starting a fire.
Law enforcement right now, there's an active shooter zone. They're shot. BC3's down, BC1's down. Everybody's shot up here.
We saw that there was a male appeared to be deceased with a weapon nearby. So we have currently 1 dead shooter. Based on the preliminary investigation that was being conducted, but based on the preliminary information, we believe that is the only shooter that was on that mountain at that time. So there is no threat to the community at this time. We do believe that the suspect started the fire. This was a total ambush. These firefighters did not have a chance. We did lose a Coeur d'Alene firefighter, and we did lose a firefighter from the Kootenai County Fire and Rescue.
News Nation's Nancy Liu on the ground there in Idaho with the very latest on this investigation. Nancy.
And Marnie, we're working to get confirmation and verification on that major new development. What the AP is identifying the suspect as Wes Raleigh. AP speaking to an official anonymously because they were not authorized to talk about the investigation. But the sheriff, the Kootenai County Sheriff, Bob Norris, said last night that this suspect was found dead with a firearm near his body, and the officials had used cell phone data to hone in on a wooded area, and that's where they found the suspect's body, and they had to immediately remove the body as well as the firearm and any other evidence that was in that area because the wildfire was spreading. And of course, that is a wildfire that the sheriff said the suspect set himself in order to lure the firefighters to the mountain and then ambush them with gunfire. Now we're expecting investigators to head up to the mountain today to search for additional physical evidence, and that may include additional weapons. The law enforcement suspect there may be other weapons. Was this guy running around the mountain using different weapons, making it seem like there was more than one shooter? We're also seeing a lot of fire equipment head up the mountain right now. That's why we had to move our position in order to allow crews to get through to that fire. It has grown to 26 acres at last report. We don't know about containment. We are awaiting a word from the Sheriff's Department on a new update, more new information about their investigation. And as I speak, another fire truck is heading up the hill. So we should have more information later today about the investigation, about the suspect, and about containment, if any.
All right. So, so they've identified him by name, but we don't, as far as I know, we don't know any details about who that individual is. Yeah, it was smoky on the mountainside behind her, but if you also notice, there was a bunch of green grass and green trees. So I would guess that the threat of it spreading, like really spreading badly, isn't probably as high as it would be in like California or Arizona. When I drove back through Arizona, the fire threat level was orange, which is the second highest next to red. So they had all kinds of warnings out. No target shooting, no shooting at all, basically, in public areas. It's a good question, Pokemon. It sounds like they found him deceased, so I'm going to guess he unalived himself.
They finally found him sitting by a tree with a weapon next to him, and he appeared to be deceased, and the fire was rapidly approaching him. So they had to get in because they had the full press conference. So once they realized what was happening, they got in there and got the body and was able to remove him before the fire got to him. And that's all I know about that.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot more we do know about it. I like this press conference, though. This guy that ran this press conference overnight, this is the last one that I saw before I went to bed, I think did a really good job of explaining the situation. He actually corrected himself and went back and said, let me go back and explain it a little better. So I want to watch this press conference. It's not real long. I think it's like 5-6 minutes. And I can actually play it on 1.25, so it's even shorter than that. But I like his press conference. The only thing that bugs me, and it always bugs me, and you know it's my thing, Salty, is when they say there's no threat to the public. I mean,
well,
how do you know that for sure? How do you know that for sure? How do you know how many shooters there were for sure right now within hours after this incident? That bugs me, but I understand that's their job and that's what they do. All right. I thought otherwise I thought it was a pretty good press conference. So we're going to watch that. Let me cue that up.
We've been dealing with no threat to the public since Idaho 4 popped off and there was no suspected killer arrested yet. You just get used to it after a while. Another one of their routine things to say.
Right. Yeah, it is. Exactly.
We had about 300 law enforcement officers that were on scene that were trying to make heads and tails out of what was occurring. And during this time, we exchanged gunfire with the suspect, and we also got information. We received information from the White House, from Kash Patel, the FBI, from Governor Brad Little, and also Raul Labrador, that anything that we needed, that they would absolutely respond. So we had a lot of assets that came into that command post. And then we had a briefing about 6:30, about 18:30 hours at the command post. And in that briefing, we kind of gave an update to the agencies that this is still an active shooter, and that as soon as this individual could be neutralized, that he should be neutralized and the threat should be eliminated as quickly as possible. At approximately 1940 hours, we did have information that let me back up just a second. We had a cell phone activation that was in the same spot since about 3:16, and that it was in the same area, and we honed in on that cell phone, and we saw that there was a male appeared to be deceased.
So that's got to be a cell tower ping, right? So he said we got a cell phone activation in an area. I'm just curious if they had an idea who the suspect was and what his phone number was, or was it like a geofence warrant?
I would say probably more like a geofence warrant, because they had said in the preliminary, I'm calling it the preliminary press conference, that people were still coming down from the mountain and they were still taking on fire during that very first initial few minutes press conference. So I don't know if they did do that, like a geofence type warrant, what numbers belong and what numbers don't. But how do you know what belongs and what don't when you're on a mountain and you got hikers everywhere, right? So I'm confused about that as well.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it shakes out. I mean, we may never know because the shooter is deceased now, so he's not going to go to trial. So we're not going to see that play out like we
Unless
are in the other.
You know, maybe he did what most of them do and left some sort of manifesto behind. They'll find.
Right.
With a weapon nearby. So we have currently one dead shooter. Based on the preliminary investigation that was being conducted, keep in mind we had a fire that was rapidly it was approaching the body, so we had to scoop up that body and we had to transport that body to a different location. But based on the preliminary information, we believe that is the only shooter that was on that mountain at that time. So there is no threat to the community.
See, he even just admitted this is based on preliminary information. This is the only shooter based on preliminary information. There is no threat to the community. So that's just what they have to say, I think. I think they have to say that.
They say it to keep the community calm. They still want you to shelter in place and to be aware of your surroundings. But you also run the risk of not everybody out there is level-headed and can handle a moment of intense situation, right? They'll panic. There's panickers out there. They are what they are. We can't help it. And you don't want to incite that mass panic, you know, and I get it.
No, but what if there is another shooter? Like worst case scenario.
I agree.
What if?
Look, I've been battling cops in their press conferences for so long. They need to come out and do it a little different. I agree, but I'm just over trying to figure out why they say that stuff, because they do it every press conference. They'll come out and say that. So, but yeah,
at this time, based on the trajectory and based on the type of weapons that this individual had that we could recover, we believe only the one shooter. We did lose a Coeur d'Alene firefighter, and we did lose a firefighter from the Cooney County Fire and Rescue. We have another firefighter that just came out of surgery from the Coeur d'Alene Police Department. I'm sorry, from the Coeur d'Alene Fire Department. Right? Is that true? Okay. He just came out of surgery. He is fighting for his life, but he's in stable condition. So we knew that our resources were exhausted. That if this were to prolong into a 24 or 48-hour operation, we would need additional helicopters. We had 2 helicopters that were up, and we had snipers in them. So if they had an opportunity to take a shot, then we wanted them to take that shot. We wanted to neutralize that threat.
So I guess that's possible. I guess he may not have unalived himself. It may have been one of the police shooters, one of the snipers that got him.
It could have been, yeah. And I guess they'll find out more of that, because they were taking on fire, you know, for quite a while there. And he says by the type of weapon the guy had. And I agree with Miss Ian's analysis there, the geofence stuff, because if they're looking at it, and you're looking for the one that's not moving, right? Or all the rest of the phones in there moving around doing things. Even the sniper could be moving around doing things, but there's still, I'm curious to see how they honed in on that one phone. Is it because it wasn't moving, right? Maybe that's because it wasn't moving at all and the rest were. I don't know. But it's interesting how they conclude all that.
It is.
Quickly,
and that's excellent police work. So kudos for that, because they were able to locate him using, whatever tools they had at their disposal and neutralize the threat, with, I'm going to say minimal damage, but 2 firefighters down and another one fighting for his life is not.
Well,
minimal.
here's the thing: they have to work fast, because that you can't just go pull a geofence. You have to have a warrant. So did they do that automatically? Hey, let's get a warrant up here and get some cell phone stuff going on geofencing on this mountain. They had to do that pretty quickly, and I think that they had every right to do that.
Yeah, it was an exigent threat. It was absolutely an exigent threat.
Right. It was like an emergency situation. Get this going.
They worked really quickly.
Mm-hmm. And you have to in those cases. You got a mountain full of people, and you don't know where the shooter is, or how many are up there. You got to move as quickly as possible. And then the first initial press conference, the firefighter even told them, they questioned about the fire. He's like, I'm not sending my guys in there as long as there's they're taking it on fire. We can't do that. So they couldn't even get in to try to fight the fire once they realized they were being shot at.
Right. That's as a first responder, the very first question you ask at any scene of anything is the scene safe? And if there's an active shooter up there, the scene is not safe, so you should not be responding to it. But obviously those first 3 guys didn't know there was an active shooter until two of them were already gone. So everybody else,
right?
No.
They're not like, oh, we better wait for the cops to get here and clear the scene. They had no idea a shooter was involved or going to be involved.
That's a good question, Micah. That's
I believe. I think they said no to that. I thought I heard that question asked this morning.
But he did supposedly set the fire to draw the firefighters there.
Yeah.
To unalive them, right?
Yes.
That's sick. That's just sick.
It is. I mean, it's not the first time that's ever happened. No. Where they set something up to, and usually it's police officers that get ambushed, right? They'll be a fake call will come in and they show up on scene and thinking they're going into a 911 call, and no, they're there because somebody has bad intentions. It's crazy. So, if you want to, it's hard. I don't want this to sound wrong. Taking your life is one thing, but then taking other lives along with it. What was to do what? To prove what? Did you leave a manifesto behind so we all have to hear your deranged thoughts on why you did what you just did? Why do you have to bring in innocent people? That's someone's husband, son, father, brother, uncle, whatever, and just to decide, I'm going to take these lives today and to hell with the fallout. I have no sympathy for people like that. I don't care what comes up in his past and how mistreated he was and all the things. Get over it. Get over it. Go get some therapy. We've all been shit.
or just do something that doesn't involve innocent people that are public servants, that are heroes.
Yeah.
Up there responding to that fire call. That's so wrong.
Yep, and you get a bigger impact, when maybe he thought he would get the bigger impact by taking out first responders versus going up to the mountain and just instead of just randomly shooting people who were hiking. You know what I mean? He took us to that next step, and they're like, I'm just going to lure these people in. That's crazy.
Yeah, every once in a while you run into a thing where it's personal, where maybe he applied for the fire department and he didn't get accepted under the fire department. So he's like, all right, we're going to.
Yeah, well, they don't like it when they get turned down for jobs, do they?
No, they don't like rejection. No.
No.
They don't like when they get kicked off of the PhD program.
No. or out of the. Never mind.
Yeah.
Never
There's a lot of rabbit holes we keep going
You're
on there.
just gonna make me go on down there, aren't you? Okay, come back up for air. Yeah.
Speaking of deranged individuals, there's a really cool story over the weekend out of Tampa, Hillsborough County, Florida. I know you've already heard about it.
Mhm.
Gisela covered it on her channel over the weekend, but I want to cover it too because it's a really cool story. And like, speaking of police departments doing their job right, like, this is so incredible. Operation Dragon Eye out of Tampa, Florida.
Well, tonight, a rare, unfiltered look inside the largest child recovery operation in U.S. history.
60 children and teens being trafficked in Tampa Bay are safer tonight. U.S. Marshals led a 2-week operation to recover critically missing and endangered children. The Marshals, along with local law enforcement agencies, were able to locate the missing kids ages 9 to 17. And police also made 8 arrests.
The number is not just a statistic. It represents a life and a future that was given one more chance.
And we are giving you an inside look. Fox 13's Genevieve Curtis spent a day with the Marshals and a team of detectives on the front lines of a missing child investigation. What she witnessed, you'll see for yourself. Here's an exclusive look of that search.
The search for a missing child takes investigators to all kinds of streets, alleyways, and motels.
Can I give you my number? So you call me, you see her?
Since 2015, the U.S. Marshals, known for their ability to find wanted fugitives, have been using their investigative skills to recover critically missing kids.
You got a minor in your house, bro.
Over the course of 2 weeks, the Marshals teamed up with detectives in Tampa, Hillsborough County.
I got to comment on that. He's showing up at this guy's front door saying, "You've got a minor in your house, bro." He's not saying that if he doesn't know that. Like, they did their groundwork, they did their research, and now they're doing their boots on the ground. You know, those are my two jams. I love research and I love boots on the ground. And child recovery operation, 60 children in one city. This is Tampa, Hillsborough County. Granted, it's got a fairly large population, but 60 children in one area.
Tampa's pretty large. It's one of our biggest cities.
Yeah.
Tampa's it encompasses a very large area. And like we touched, the I-10 corridor runs right through Florida. It can go all the way to California. There's a lot that happens on the I-10 corridor. I wonder how many of those kids were actually from Florida, how many were out of state. It makes me mad being in Florida, right? And there's missing kids around here well, they're not kids anymore. They would have been kids when they went missing, have never been found. There are some of them down there. We don't. That's what the crazy thing is right now. Florida's getting sick of it.
2 weeks. Yeah.
Yeah, Florida has been cracking down on a lot of this, and it makes you wonder how these investigations develop, and who is networking and having all these children. You know, where are they getting them from? They're all runaways. They're kidnapped by their parent. I mean, it's just a lot of different situations these kids find themselves in to end up like that.
And I think we see. We see in this later one or two of those situations described in a little more detail. I think one was a runaway, but she ended up in a household with 2 adult males that were not related to her. So it's kind of like, yeah, no, that's not right.
Pokemon, I'm not close to there. I'm in the Florida Panhandle. I'm down here by Alabama. I'm not near Central Florida. We're a whole different beast down here in the Panhandle.
Pinellas County and St. Pete, as well as Pasco County, to find kids in dangerous situations. We joined up with the Tampa team, made up of TPD detectives from the Special Victims Unit and U.S. Deputy Marshal Paul Cherasi.
First one's a 15-year-old female. It's been missing since the beginning of April. We got some leads that she might be in the West Tampa area, so we're going to be following up there today, seeing if we can locate her.
The team has been looking for a missing 15-year-old girl. We're calling her Paula.
We believe that they're in a company with adults who are aiding them, hiding them, providing them resources such as food and housing.
Detectives say she ran away from her mom's home, and the task force is concerned for her safety.
Common sense would dictate that adults who are not relatives do not take care of other people's children for nothing. They're getting something in return. So due to that, we have serious concerns that there may be exploitation occurring.
Be in that area?
Okay.
So do that first.
The team got some good leads from a West Tampa neighborhood the day before and decide to keep working that area.
So yeah, a couple blocks north.
Detective Tony Ortiz has been in contact with Paula's mom.
And that's very concerning for any parent. And then she's been gone since April this time. She hasn't run away that many times before.
They rely on information from the community, knocking on doors and just talking to people.
She hasn't run away that many times before. What is that many times? How many times running away does it take? And so the natural question that most people ask is, if your teenage daughter is running away several times, what's going on in that house or in her life that causes her not to want to be there enough to put her own life at risk to get away from it? I mean, that's the natural question. But I mean, yeah, I don't have the answers to that. And it's different in every situation, right?
It's the girl they look for right here, supposed to be. We just want to take her back to her mom, man. I gave him my number.
Next, we check a corner store that has a camera outside. There's no video of her, but someone recognizes Paula's photo.
But she's been here by herself.
The task force says many of the children they're looking for during this operation are in the foster care system, and many find themselves running from something or towards something, but oftentimes get into a more dangerous situation.
Just because a young person ran away or just because someone asked them to leave, it doesn't make them any less at risk.
At a command center, partner agencies are gathering information and working leads on the missing kids to then pass on to the officers in the field.
We know that when kids are missing, kids are at risk.
Dr. Catherine Gomez is the director of human trafficking intervention for the Florida Department of Juvenile Justice. She says trafficking happens in every county and every city in Florida, where kids are exploited by adults in exchange for food, clothing, or shelter.
There are kids from here, born here, raised here. There are kids being exploited right here in Florida by fellow local people.
This operation, Operation Dragon Eye, started with a list of around 60 to 80 missing kids. When we visited the command center 8 days in, the count showed more than 40 had been found.
We're worried about this kid. We wondered where they've been and what they've been up to.
Gomez says after recovery, they worked through next steps, which could include launching investigations into child abuse or other criminal investigations and finding a safe place for the child. Underscoring this urgent search for these kids is what can happen if they aren't found. This year, 16-year-old Miranda Corsett went missing. Gulfport police say she was chronically running away from her grandmother's home.
Get on the ground! Get on the ground!
Police arrested 35-year-old Stephen Gress for allegedly beating her to death and then dismembering her body. In 2020.
Wow. That's a story that I didn't even hear about. Did you hear about that one? I'm going to back up just a second and replay her name just so her name is out there as the victim. Like I just went through Hooker, Oklahoma, and ran across the story of a missing and deceased 16-year-olds. It's not okay.
This year, 16-year-old Miranda Corsett went missing. Gulfport police say she was chronically running away from her grandmother's home.
Get on the ground! Get on the ground!
Police arrested 35-year-old Stephen Gress for allegedly beating her to death and then dismembering her body. In 2022, 14-year-old Alexia Alexander was found shot to death in East Tampa after running away from home. 44-year-old Ronnie Walker was arrested for her murder. So the marshals know after 3 months, it is critical to find Paula.
One of the comments that we got from one of the guys on the street was that she's going to end up hurt or dead.
Yeah, we might just suit up.
A few hours into the search, a new lead comes in. They have a location for her. The task force approaches the home.
Tampa police. Bring up her. The information that she's here. Yes, sir.
Bro.
Tabian's here. What's your name, sir? She's here.
We know she's here.
We know she's here.
Hold on. Let me go check. I've been here all day.
Hold on. Don't close the door.
Hold on, let me go check. We know she's here. And he says, hold on, let me go check. Holy crap. And these guys are like, wait. We weren't born yesterday, dude. We're going to have a little chat about this.
No, don't close the door. Just have her come outside, bro. That's it. That's all we want. That's all we want. We don't care about anybody else in the house.
And when detectives search inside, they find Paula.
We searched the house, knocked on the brother's door. Brother answered, and juvenile was hiding under his bed. So right now we're just gonna follow the investigation, see if we can make any arrests, and see where we can go from there.
2 men at the home claimed they didn't know she was underage. And at this time, the task force doesn't have enough to make an arrest. But they say the investigation will continue.
We need to show to the court that he knew she was a minor. We're not there yet.
When we started this day, Detective Tony Ortiz shared with me his approach when he finds the teens.
And I'm gonna talk to her mostly as a father. Mostly as a father figure, not as a law enforcement officer. And I'm gonna hear her out, see what she has to say.
And a few hours later, that is exactly what he was doing with Paula.
And your mom wants you back. You have to live your life. You have to live your childhood. Don't skip on childhood. You don't miss out.
The next stop will be a special unit at St. Joseph's Hospital where Paula can receive physical and mental health services and the resources to perhaps find a safer path forward.
A lot of them don't have any hope, and that's what we're also doing with this operation is trying to instill hope.
In Tampa, Genevieve Curtis, Fox 13 News.
Well, today, Genevieve also spoke with U.S. Marshal William Berger, who used to be a foster parent and understands the environments that can cause children to run away in the first place. He says the risk for them running away is high.
What we've done is two-pronged. One is, again, being able to identify them, being able to save them, but then putting them in a process with, as mentioned, daycare and other facilities to help them both physically and psychologically. And hopefully we can turn it around. We're praying that if 50% of the children can be saved permanently, that's a tremendous success.
Tomorrow night, we're going to take you inside the hub where medical staff, advocates, and survivors of trafficking are providing help and resources to the children recovered during this operation.
Good job, guys. It's so hard to come up with the resources to be able to have an operation like that. And I'm glad that they've prioritized that. I mean, 60 lost/missing/runaway children recovered in 2 weeks is just an incredible number.
Yeah.
But also heartbreaking for the ones that they didn't get to in time. I think that second one that they showed, so after the first one where I was like, this one is really sick, then there was one after that too, and I think I actually covered that on one of mine because that defendant looked familiar to me, but it's been months since I covered that.
Yeah.
That guy with the big long beard.
There's a lot goes on in Florida, just like all states. A lot of big states, it's not just a lot of the big states have a lot of things going on at different times. You just don't hear about all of them,
Right.
Right.
And the bigger
go ahead.
The bigger the state, the more tax base you have, but also at the same time, the more demand there is for your resources, for the state's resources. So it's up to the politicians and all those people that have lobbyists yelling at them every single day and seducing them every single day with lobbyist money to come up with the money for programs like this. So big shout out to Tampa PD and to all the people involved with Operation Dragon Eye in allocating the resources and following up with it. I mean, that's just amazing. I love it.
Yeah, there's been a lot. Florida is done with people hurting kids in this state and getting away with it or getting a slap on the wrist for it, and Stephon Stearns is a prime example under our new law, for harming the way he did Maddie and the things he was doing there. There's been a lot of pushback over the past 20 years in Florida for children, and a lot of that has come out on the better side for them. So when we say push back against what you don't like, it works. It worked in Florida. There was major pushback even on our DCF that when they lost that little girl and no one knew for 2 to 3 years that she was even gone and she was in the state's custody, that lit a fire under Florida. And the people were like, what's been going on behind our backs that we aren't aware of? And then we knew. And yeah, there's been a lot of changes. So people can just keep fighting for the kids, and hopefully other states will take the lead and do the same type of task force and get this going, because these kids don't deserve it. And a lot of them they're escaping a bad life, looking for a better life. Some are just being rebellious and being runaway. You know what I mean? Against the parents' rules. They come from all walks of life. These kids do.
Right. And they're all susceptible.
Oh yeah, most definitely.
I think that article put it pretty well when they said all of these kids are either running away from something or running towards something. or maybe both. They didn't say both, but I'll say both.
Yeah, and that's true. You don't know what kids are going through, and some have a great home life and rebel against it. Some have a horrible home life and are just looking for a better way. And those are the ones you really worry about, the ones looking for a better way, because they may not know any better as far as how they're supposed to be treated, right from wrong, because they don't know any different. And then they're running to what they think is going to be safety because they're being lured and tricked. Of course I got you. I'm your person. I'm going to take care of you. I'm your safety net. And that safety net's the biggest devil in disguise half the time.
Mm-hmm.
Put you right out on the streets.
Yep.
It's sad. Oh, I saw you had your buy me a coffee link. Guys, I just bought Joe a big ass cup of coffee.
No way.
Well, maybe a medium. in today's I almost said climate. I can't get my words today. And
Well, thank you for that. I appreciate that. I'm going to have to check my push notifications because I didn't get a push notification on that.
Oh, you didn't?
Check that.
Oh, cool.
No.
Yeah, I hadn't done that. That's the first time I bought somebody a coffee.
Well, thank you. Thank
You're
you,
welcome.
Salty. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Well, speaking of kids running away from something or towards something, we have the Idaho FLDS kid, missing kids. And like I teased at the beginning of this show, Lauren Matthias from Hidden True Crime did a really good interview with Mike Watkiss, who has been covering the FLDS and all of the craziness there for a long time, like in-person, boots on the ground. Like, he's my kind of reporter. I love it. But she did an interview with him over the weekend, and we're going to watch segments of that because there is so much to learn from his 40 years of experience. And so I texted Lauren and asked, is it okay if I show clips of this? And she said, yes. But I have to ask first because I don't want to get.
You don't want a repeat of last time, right?
No, we do not. But she's super generous. She's super kind. We got to know each other really well especially during Lori's trial. We met kind of surreptitiously at the Delphi trial. But then we got to know each other better during Lori's 2 trials. So I'm grateful for her for this wonderful interview with Mike and for giving me permission to show clips of it. Yes, Deborah. Yep. Boom. He's a legendary reporter. He has won an award from the FBI for his reporting. No joke.
Yeah.
He did a report one time on the increase in the number of armored car robberies in a particular area, and it led to the FBI focusing in and making arrests, and he won an award for that from the FBI. It's like, I want to be Mike when I grow up. But let's get into this interview. I have like 4 clips. A couple of them are a little longer than others. Just because there's so much information that's like I could literally play this whole entire it's about an hour and a half interview, like from start to finish, and not bat an eye. But I'm not going to do that to Lauren because it's on her channel. So we're going to put a link in here for you to check out the entire interview, and I'm just going to show you some like tidbits and highlights that the rest of us can relate to, like at the 50,000 foot level of dialing in on what the heck is going on with the FLDS.
This guy identified, I could see by the area code, correct. And I don't even want to answer this call. Rings. I finally pick it up, and this guy says, "Hi, my name is Samuel Bateman. I know that this is going to sound strange."
Samuel Bateman is a name that I was not extremely familiar with. We're going to learn a lot about Samuel Bateman in this interview. I didn't know. You may already know. Some of you probably already know about Samuel Bateman, but the reason that it's relevant for me is because after Warren Jeffs went to prison for decades, there was another guy that assumed his position. And it's this guy. and now he's in prison for decades. Who's going to take his place, or who's going to stop somebody from taking his place? So that's the reason why his research into this is critical, and it relates to the conversations that Kresha and I have had, including the one Kresha and I had last night. Our mission is not done. Our job is not done when Lori goes to prison for the rest of his life and the rest of her life and just fades off into oblivion, and we don't have to talk about her anymore. There's somebody else that can be plug and play and take over where she left off. And there are a couple of M's out there that we should be concerned about. There's at least one M out there we should be concerned about.
This is Sam talking to me. And he says, but God has revealed to me that I need to meet Mike Watkiss and the Queen of England.
Hello, Hidden Gems. I am with...
Did you catch that? Mr. Bateman said God told him that he needs to meet Mike Watkiss, the legendary journalist, and the Queen of England. I think he probably has one of those two down at this point. We'll find out. I'm going to skip ahead a little bit here. I've got a timestamp. 13 minutes in.
Her, she's a
female mayor. Okay.
Wonderful person. Yeah, wonderful person.
Wonderful. Someone that left the FLDS faith.
Yeah.
And, you know, a lot of it was Warren Jeffs is gone. We're trying to move on. And yet here comes Sam Bateman. So then I leave. I go do my own thing. I start hitting true crime. I'm done. And then in 2019, this is when the Sam Bateman stuff starts happening after. Right. So when you say stuff doesn't happen in a vacuum, and honestly, I guess I'm just saying this too, because like I had a lot of hope for the FLDS community moving forward. I have friends that are FLDS. Like I thought this is going to get better. So when you say things don't happen in a vacuum, you're saying, look, here we are again and again and again. Sam Bateman's come along. He was a supporter of Warren Jeffs too. He was there, wasn't he? At Warren Jeffs' trial.
Yeah.
So that's the point that I just made. Warren Jeffs goes to trial. This guy, Sam Bateman, supports him while he's on trial. But as soon as Warren Jeff goes to prison, watch what happens with Sam Bateman's life and his influence on the FLDS community.
And it's almost like a copycat of Warren Jeffs, as I've read about it and seen, but even worse. Like, if people don't understand what is happening with the recent conviction sentencing of Samuel Bateman, it is horrific, as you say. So when you say it doesn't happen in a vacuum, talk to me a little bit more about that, because like I said, I'm coming from this place of like, but, and you're saying this is just happening again and again and again in this community. And your friend, Elizabeth, is now part of this continuing issue. Is that a fair thing to like lay out and try to help me understand this? Because I
just
all right, Micah, we have a lot to learn about the FLDS. That's the Fundamentalist Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and it is not the LDS Church. So I'm glad you asked that question, because it's a relevant question to this entire discussion. Let me get to StreamYard so I can highlight that comment. Boop, there we go. FLDS, Fundamentalist Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. There's another one that's the RLDS. R is something or other, Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. They're not the LDS Church. They're not associated with the LDS, but they do commingle a lot. Like you'll see Lauren in this interview will say she has friends that are in the FLDS Church. She's LDS. Her husband is not. But FLDS is different. So when you say FLDS, we're not talking the same church as the LDS Church. I say it this way: the FLDS is like the LDS Church married the Amish or the German Baptists, because they wear their prairie dresses and they're very conservative and very I don't even know how to put the word. They live in their own compounds and communities for the most part. And that's where some people suspect these two children probably ended up, but maybe didn't, because they're hiding them right now because they're currently kidnapped. Their father kidnapped them, maybe with the help of their older sister, maybe not. Mike will talk about that a little bit in here too. Good question, Micah. Thank you for that. All right, let's go back and start this back up.
Really, I don't think the story has ever really changed. It's a sort of men abusing women and girls under the guise of this religion, and that has really been. I try to. This story can get way too complicated with way too many personalities, but we try to just maintain our focus on the victims, and then focus on the perps. And I've been chasing guys like Sam Bateman down for.
I love that perspective from Mike, because we all have a tendency to focus on the perps, and he says he helps us all get right. Focus on the victims and then focus on the perps, but don't not focus on the perps. Just make sure we're focusing on the victims first. I love that.
Yeah, in any case, I look at is like that because, you know, without a victim, you wouldn't have a perpetrator.
Right.
So we can never forget the victims, and shame on those who say we should. Don't talk about the victims. It's all about the defendant. No, it's not. I don't care if the defendant he's still a defendant at that point, you know, until proven guilty or innocent or whatever. There's still a victim out there. And we wouldn't be here if there wasn't victims. So people who don't want to talk about the victims, to me, is creepy. What does it say about them as a person, you know?
I can't do that. My coverage of Lori's trials would not be the same if JJ wasn't a part of my heart now because of Kresha. Like he's in there. He's such a beautiful little boy, and Tylee also, and Charles. Like I feel like I got to know Charles a little bit too through my coverage, and I wouldn't give a shit about Lori if it wasn't for them.
No, a lot of us have carried JJ and Tylee in our hearts from day one.
Yep.
You know, years. Just like the victims in Delphi. For years, we carried Abby and Libby with us for 5 solid years until an arrest was made. Idaho Forest, the same thing. There's never, the victims should always be at the forefront, in my opinion.
Oh, thank you for that, Janelle. You know, that's. So
Yeah.
Janelle was friends with Tammy, and I haven't got to know Tammy all that well. All I know is that she was married to Chad when he was screwing around with Lori and doing his world book tour crap.
Yeah.
And they had what, four or five kids together. I actually would like to get to know more about her story. I really would.
I mean, we know somewhat because of what her sisters have said. There's just not been a lot of focus on Tammy as much as there have the children. That's because the family has been more vocal, right, about the children and about Charles, and that is their prerogative. Tammy's family, like I said, her sister has come out and spoken, done interviews and things of that, and we've all gotten to know Tammy somewhat over the years, especially if you follow these cases before Arizona cases. If you go back to Idaho, if you know about those, you know about Tammy, and for people who didn't even watch the Idaho trials or know much about them to come into these two without getting all of that into the context, you're missing a lot. But a lot of us did get to know Tammy, and she was just as much a victim as the rest of them, just as much. She didn't deserve to be done that way either.
No, and it took them exhuming her body to discover that she had been poisoned, right? They didn't make that determination at first.
No, at first they just believed Chad, and then they just determined, okay, it was natural causes, but no. And then it comes out that she also was shot at by what she thought was a paintball gun. Isn't that odd? Both descriptions of the two people who survived attempted shootings described almost the same weapon as to what it looked like.
Yeah, crazy.
Yeah, Tammy's aunt did do interviews with HTC here. Yeah, she covered this case a lot back in the Idaho days, so I always give her mad prompts for that.
Absolutely. And for her to call somebody like Mike a legendary journalist is like high praise, very high praise.
40 years and have been part of, telling the stories of almost every one of the significant prosecutions during that 4-decade period. And, you are absolutely correct. During the 10 years that you were in Colorado City, there was such just a sea change in the creek. Hilldale, Colorado City, are nothing like that anymore. You've been there recently. It's more like Kanab or Moab or Sedona. You know, it's just now another beautifully situated Red Rocks little tourist town.
Yeah, a place you used to not be able to go because of all the walls built. You know, it's gorgeous, right? It's at the it's at the foot of Zion National Park. It's beautiful land with these walls and this isolation, and you can't go in. In fact, I worked at the Grand Canyon when I was 19, and we weren't allowed to go in. Like the change that happened, and then you walk in and they've got glamping businesses and companies.
Yeah. You know, the town has changed.
So Colorado City apparently is or was an FLDS community, right? So, and it's changed recently. I've been to Moab, I've been to Kanab. Beautiful cities, beautiful scenery. They're very close to, you know, several state parks and national monuments. Been in Zion National Park. Charlie drank river water from the Virgin River in Zion National Park. So, but apparently Colorado City and Arizona, and I'm sure people in chat probably know a lot more about it than I do. There are walls. I don't know about the walls in Colorado City. I may have to go do some exploring.
Changed, and then there's a reason for that because of the stories and the pressure from the media and activists. You know, several years, about 2 years before I retired back in 2018, the federal government, U.S. attorneys took the town, the cops, everybody to court, and basically took control. The feds took control of the town away, and that was Warren being incarcerated and locked up in Texas, and then the civil rights lawsuit that doesn't get any attention, but it was as fundamental in the change of that town as anything. U.S. attorneys went into court here at Phoenix, and during a multi-week trial, just basically did a roadmap of many of the stories we'd done about the abuses of the police, the abuses of the utility companies to intimidate and harass people if they fell out of line. You know, there were dark days. When you got there, I was making a sea change, and Danya Jessup, I think, is a great emblematic of that. A woman from the community is now the mayor, you know, a woman in a position of authority. Remarkable. It knocked me over with a feather when having known the town. I never thought I'd see it. So you're right. The town has changed, but like I say, that's not the FLDS anymore. You want to find the FLDS story. It's not Colorado City or Hilldale. It's scattered to the wind, and this is one of another key factors.
That's a huge point right there. And it goes to Pokemon's point, Shelley. Why waste all the resources on wall? Because they wanted a secluded community. They wanted to wall the world out. So one of the key LDS phrases, and I don't know if it's FLDS also, but there's probably have something similar. Be in the world, but not of the world. In other words, we don't want the world's influence on our culture. And the point that Mike just made is huge. He said there was media pressure, there were criminal charges, but there was also a civil lawsuit that helped to change that culture in those cities. And so basically their communities, their compounds were destroyed through those lawsuits and through the visibility of the media on their communities, on the wrongs that were being done within those communities. So that's a good question, and it all kind of relates. It's all relative to making change. And when you have somebody like Mike and Lauren shining the spotlight into these dark areas, when we have somebody like Kresha shining the spotlight into the dark areas, I think it makes a difference.
Factor that has happened during these last 20 years. They lost control of the town. People, you know, with all the coverage and Warren being tried in Utah and Texas, they lost control of the town. Warren told his people to start to flee. They took, you know, lawsuits that allowed the apostates, kids who had been lost boys who'd been kicked out, to come back and claim the land. So the FLDS community abandoned, for all intents and purposes, under Warren's directions, abandoned Colorado City and Hilldale.
So that's a good point. They were in Colorado City and they abandoned it. Let's see, we're at 18:13. Oh, I got 15 more seconds left on my timestamp. Let's hear what he has to say in the next 30 seconds before we jump ahead to the next timestamp. This is a really, really good interview. I love this.
Many of them during that period of Texas went down to the compound down there, but then Texas Rangers changed that when they got a search warrant and went in and busted the place. So there are two centers of operation, the crick and the compound in Texas, taken away from them. And so what has the FLDS community? They've scattered to the wind. So they're throughout Idaho, where Elizabeth Roundy lives, lots of there, throughout Utah, Nevada, Arizona, and further flung now.
So that's a huge point. Is they got their major communities, their anchor communities, disrupted, and so they had to disband, and now they're scattered all over a bunch of different places. And he will tie that back in a little bit. Let's see what my next timestamp is. Let's go up to 22 minutes.
So you're saying, just to go back to the children really quickly and this revelation, you say they're missing because of this revelation. Let me explain again. I get this article and about the Amber Alert. The police say they left voluntarily, but there's an Amber Alert.
I'm sure they did. Those kids, again, have been so poisoned against their mother. And with the help of a sister who is already out, I'm sure those kids left. But if that's their excuse, these kids, a 15, 13-year-old, didn't do that with the help of their 18-year-old sister. They didn't do this alone. They're now hiding somewhere. That's a conspiracy with multiple people, and it's Warren's minions who have been told we've got to get all the kids back in because we're all going to get translated. And now his doomsday clock it's out in about 2027. So the clock's ticking, and I just these they're all the same story. And they didn't happen for just because these kids wanted out of away from a mother they didn't like. They went because they're going back into the FLDS community because the FLDS community has been told to gather them up, and those kids had help getting away from their mom.
What do you mean gather the children? Explain. And again, I want to point out, as you said, Warren Jeff's been behind bars for 20 years. But this is a new revelation, and when we say new, we just mean not 20 years ago, but it's 3 years ago.
2022, I think is when.
Okay, so.
Did you catch that? Two key words in there that we heard. Hold on, I got to adjust the camera. There we go. All right, we're back. We heard doomsday and gathering. I want to go back and listen to that again because where did we just hear that? We just heard that in Lori's trial, right?
Yeah.
So this is FLDS. This is Warren Jeffs. This is not the LDS Church and their prophet and their quorum of the 12. This is the FLDS having very similar religious terms as to what we heard in Lori's trials. So I'm going to play that one more time.
Amber Alert. The police say they left voluntarily, but there's an Amber Alert.
I'm sure they did.
Go back a little more. We'll go back to
their daughter missing, Dan and Maxine Jessup, and we helped with the help of an attorney in Salt Lake. We helped find this girl, but she was basically kidnapped by her older siblings. It's the exact same scenario that is playing out with Elizabeth Roundy and her children. And so, again, you got to look at this stuff. This is not just a one-off kidnapping in Idaho. It's not just a one-off kidnapping in Utah.
This is not a one-off kidnapping. You hear that? This is not a one-off kidnapping. It's systemic. It's organizational.
Some others, they're all part of this, larger scheme, conspiracy, orchestrated by Mr. Jeffs to get the children back together. And during that revelation, one of the ominous things that he mentioned was that he basically sort of set in motion this 5.5-year doomsday clock where everybody's going to get translated and all the faithful have to come in. And, and that means it means death. And a lot of people are very concerned about that. I always caution that Warren has been using the doomsday card to intimidate his followers since he started. So that's nothing new. But I point to the fact that, again, he's now been stewing in a prison cell for 20 years. He's nearly 70 years old. I don't know how crazy he is now. And one of these times he may be for real when he talks about doomsday stuff.
So you're saying, just to go back to the children really quickly and this revelation, you say they're missing because of this revelation. Let me explain again. I get this article and about the Amber Alert. The police say they left voluntarily, but there's an Amber Alert.
I'm sure they did. Those kids, again, have been so poisoned against their mother, and with the help of a sister who is already out, I'm sure those kids left. But if that's their excuse, these kids, a 15, 13-year-old, didn't do that with the help of their 18-year-old sister. They didn't do this alone. They're now hiding somewhere. That's a conspiracy with multiple people, and it's Warren's minions who have been told we've got to get all the kids back in because we're all going to get translated. And now his doomsday clock, it's out in about 2027. So, the clock's ticking, and I just, these they're all the same story. And they didn't happen for just because these kids wanted out of away from a mother they didn't like. They went because they're going back into the FLDS community because the FLDS community has been told to gather them up, and those kids had help getting away from their mom.
That was a pretty crucial statement right there. He said they weren't trying to run away from something; they wanted back into the FLDS community. That same community having been told by Warren Jeffs to gather the children back up. This is huge. Like when I first watched this part of the interview, I'm like, am I hearing this right? It's so they got scattered by the different things that have happened over the last 20 years, and Warren Jeffs going to prison, and their communities being dispersed, and now they're being told by this 2022 edict from him to gather everybody back up.
Yeah, it's been going on for a couple of years because he's done that. When they first arrested Warren Jeffs, there was a big documentary that came out, and even showing how siblings would go back in and try to rescue their siblings who were left behind, and how dangerous it was to go in and try to get your siblings out to safety, to wherever you were at. And they would go into hiding once away from LDS because they're going to look for them and try to get them back in. But once they're 18, it's a little harder to get those back in. I saw there were a couple of them that got their siblings out, and just a few weeks into it, they didn't know how to handle it, and they wanted to go back because they were so unsure of themselves and what was right and wrong, what they'd been taught their entire lives, and they just don't know how to live outside the LDS compounds. This has been going on for years. It's not,
and that's a tough mental state to be in, because I was in, the quote unquote soft cult. I was raised LDS in the Midwest, so Midwest LDS are different than Mormon Belt LDS. So that's Phoenix all the way up to Idaho, and even goes into Canada and goes down into Mexico, where they treat the rules and regulations a little bit differently, sometimes more strictly, sometimes less strictly. But when you get to a certain point in your life and you have to wonder and question some of the things that you've been taught, and either you come to the conclusion that what I was taught is okay, or you come to the conclusion it wasn't. But if you take somebody from one parent, kidnap them to go live back in the FLDS compound with a different parent, that has got to be so confusing for them. Like, I cannot even imagine what they're going through. I can't imagine.
It's rough.
What do you mean gather the children? Explain. And again, I want to point out, as you said, Warren Jeff's been behind bars for 20 years. But this is a new revelation. And
Right.
when we say new, we just mean not 20 years ago, but it's 3 years ago?
2022, I think is when.
Okay, so 3 years ago.
Yeah.
So-
And, there was a confluence of interesting events. Netflix dropped a big documentary right at that same time, How Keep Sweet, Pray and Obey. I think it really reminded people. It's a very competent recapitulation of the last 40 years in the crimes and what brought Warren down. But it sort of just comes to an abrupt end. And it's almost immediately as that documentary dropped, Sam Bateman comes out of the woodwork and reaches out to me and clearly other people. So we have this aberrant sort of wannabe prophet, and Warren issues his revelation about gather up the children. And when I say gather up the children, he realizes that by tearing families apart, kids are all now all asunder in various locations, and that was his doing. But now, because people were starting to gather up wives and gather up new followers, he realized I need to put out an edict to pull everybody back in, and I can't control the people if I'm not going to allow them to have sex and children. And so, I don't think it's any.
Catch that? He drops these bombs. Mike just drops these bombs. Like, wait, what did you just say it's about? He's going to tell us in a second what it's all about for Warren Jeffs and for Sam Bateman. He just did. I had to go back and replay it like 3 times to make sure that I heard it correctly.
And that was his doing. But now, because people were starting to gather up wives and gather up new followers, he realized I need to put out an edict to pull everybody back in. And I can't control the people if I'm not going to allow them to have sex and children. And so, I don't.
Did you catch that? I'm not going to say it out loud. I don't think YouTube would ban me, but it's I can't control them if I don't allow them to have S with children.
Yeah, the whole Warren Jeff's whole thing is out there. I mean, I thought I was looking for it right now. I thought I sent it to you once, but I may not have.
Sam Bateman is too. Sam Bateman is like a carbon copy of him as far as that motivation goes. It's disgusting. Like these disgusting people that control women and children so they can get their rocks off and to do it for religious purposes. And honestly, probably at some point in time, they believed that they were quote unquote called by God to do it or whatever. They're creating their own populations. But at what point does that transition to just plain disgusting lust for children? Like what? I don't even want to understand. I'm asking it rhetorically. Please don't answer me.
No, but it's been, I'll tell you, it's been good. This is, now that people are seeing this is going on, it's been going on for years, 20, 30 years. And I feel like sometimes I was the only one that may have seen all that because I've watched all of it over the years. It makes me infuriated. I don't do organized religion. I have a very strong walk with Jesus for very personal reasons. That's my walk. But I don't need to walk into a church and sit down in a pew and pretend to be something I'm not to get the word of God. And I don't care if you're LDS, FDLS, Catholic, Southern Baptist, call yourself what you want to call you. They all want you to conform to certain things or you're going straight to hell. And just happens to be FDLS, they take abuse to the next level and incorporate that into the religion as well. And it's sickening, and it's been going on for far too long. And it's just, I don't, mainstream media, mass media, whatever you want to call it, before social media, they did cover things, and I wouldn't have seen the things if I hadn't watched it there, and the documentaries and things. But I don't think it's, as long as there's separation in church and state, and how much the government can become involved in your religion, this is going to continue to go on. Now, they've tried to stop FDLS. They've arrested Warren Jeffs. They said this is not right. We're taking these kids away. And then they fight hard to get their kids back. And then you're fighting a religion. Then you're fighting God. And that's where it gets murky.
Yeah. Pammy, that's a good question. I just rewound just a little bit so we can hear him say it again. He says it so fast, it's hard to tell. Let's see if we can hear. Let's see if we can figure out what he says.
Like tearing families apart. Kids are all now all asunder in various locations, and that was his doing. But now, because people were starting to gather up wives and gather up new followers, he realized I need to put out an edict to pull everybody back in, and I can't control the people if I'm not going to allow them to have sex and children. And so, I don't think it's.
Okay.
It's black and white.
I had to slow it down a little bit. You're right, Pammy. It's and, not with. But to be fair to the truth, it is with.
It is with. Jeff's married a child. He picks her up. There's a damn picture out there floating around for 20 years of Warren Jeffs holding a 12-year-old little girl, and it's his wife. 20 years that picture's been out there.
Sam Bateman, too. I didn't know about Sam Bateman very well until this interview, but
yeah,
he's just as disgusting. Yes, Pokemon. Yep. I heard it wrong, but I was on 1.25 speed, so I had to go back to regular speed to hear it.
White as that. That's the motive here. And so Mr. Jeffs, lifts his moratorium and basically says, gather up the children. Like all the children whose parents have gotten out and have gotten them out, well, other family members, extended family, need to reach out and pull them back in. And that's what happened. And after the first girl that we got involved with, Danine Jessup, the first girl that got reported missing, a whole slew of other people did. And this organization, it's a good organization up in Salt Lake City, holding out help. Tanya Toole, they've gotten really in front of that and have gathered up these families.
All right. That's that clip. I got another one I want to jump to. You really should go watch this entire video on Lauren's channel. It is so enlightening. This is the arrest of Sam Bateman. I actually have it pulled up on mine, but hopefully she'll let me play it on hers. You'll see the children that are there when he's arrested. And then there'll be a little discussion with Mike about it afterwards.
Poking out of the trailer.
With guns drawn, they open the doors,
See the hands!
finding 3 young girls.
How old are you? 14. How old are you? 11? How old are you? 12?
Also inside the trailer, a couch, camping chairs, and a makeshift toilet. When they tried questioning the girls, this woman in the maroon dress stepped in.
Basically telling them all.
Then one of the officers noticed.
A 14-year-old, she had a ring on her finger, on her ring finger. They've all kind of like hidden those. I mean, we know what's going on.
Police say the person driving the truck is this man, Samuel Bateman. Court documents claim Bateman is a self-proclaimed prophet, part of the polygamous group with the FLDS. Investigators say Bateman has dozens of followers and more than 20 wives, many of them underage. He's also accused of sexually abusing multiple girls, trafficking them across state lines.
As you can see, it's a pretty serious deal here, sir.
Police tried to question him about the...
As you can see, this is a pretty serious deal here, sir. Understatement of the video. So, Salty, help me understand the mindset of all of those girls in the truck and in the trailer that are minors, that have wedding bands on. Are they just so manipulated through religion? Is that what's going on?
Yeah, they're told that. Yes, and they're told if everybody on the outside of our compound is the devil. They're going to try to harm us. They want to come out of our religion. They want to take you away from us. They're the ones who are going to be left, in the wake of Jesus' return. All those who aren't within our compound, you don't want to be out there. And so, yeah, these girls don't know anything than what they've been taught. Same with the boys. They're raised to believe this is the way it is. And if you rebel against this, you too will burn in hell, and they don't want that. You see a lot of that when you look at the interview with the mother who her 2 kids were just kidnapped. What's her name? I can't remember. He just said her name, actually. It's already left me. But even when she talks about her being raised the way she was raised and how she left FLDS and the confusion, that comes with leaving and being told that this is, even when she had the miscarriages and was told to go away and repent, and she didn't even realize why or understand fully why, because you're told this is how it is. And if they only want to harm us because not because they're outsiders, but because they don't believe in our religion, and they're not going to have the same faith we have. So it's, blaming these kids I'm not going to do it. You can't blame children when they only know what they're raised in. And it's like children who are living with their actual parents and they're harmed by their actual parents. They don't know any different until they're older and they start seeing the way their friends are treated by their parents. Then they might say, wait a minute, what's happening at home isn't normal. Or maybe not normal, so yeah, brainwashing is flat out, like Tiff says. That's what goes on with these kids. And you got these grown men telling you I'm a prophet and God is speaking through me and this is how it's going to be. God wants this. They're believing it, hook, line, and sinker.
So disturbing.
It is very disturbing.
Every single one of those girls he asked their age was a minor. Every single one. and then the one that's not steps up to like speak for them and tell them to stop talking to the cops.
And how all these men and women act like, well, it's not child abuse. This is our religion. For them to buy into that and to believe that's okay, that these girls are supposed to marry this young. Now, back in the day, I'm talking great grandparents' days, getting a girl married at 15 years old was no big deal. That was normal. Her husband was also her age, right? Not like a 50-year-old man marrying a 15-year-old kid. That happened back in the days as well. But as times changed, society changed with it, right? And it is not acceptable to marry the minors anymore, things like that. But with these religions, they hide behind that religion the whole time. And when you got separation of church and state, there's your problem, in my opinion. It makes it too easy then to hide behind religion when you got that kind of separation going,
Right. And when you have systemic brainwashing, like Tiff said, where that's just the norm. Like you're raised to believe that there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, you have no idea that people are out there saying otherwise. Even when they go out as a group and they're wearing their prairie dresses, and they'll see women who aren't dressed that way, and they'll point it out to the girls. Look at her, that, there's a name for women like that, and they don't want to be associated with that type of name. And so if you listen to certain music, or if you wear your hair a certain way, or if you dress a certain way, you're bad. It's
I was when I was in middle school, I was extremely shy. I'm still extremely shy. If you didn't know, if you couldn't tell, I was so shy that I would get around girls and I would just be so nervous I couldn't say anything. But I was also raised Mormon, and you didn't go to dances when I was a teenager until you were 16 years old. So there was a Sadie Hawkins dance at school one year, and I got asked to the Sadie Hawkins dance by another gal, and I had to turn her down because I wasn't old enough, according to my religion, to go to dances yet.
Oh, no.
So there were a certain group of crueler boys in the school that started putting out the rumors that I was gay. And it didn't really affect me that much. I mean, it did a little bit. We had a few back and forths. We had a few tussles from now and then when they would be especially cruel. But I mean, that's the impact that religion can have on your life. Like, I did not even think twice about it when I was asked to go to that dance. I just was like, I have to say no. I'm sorry. I can't go to a dance until I'm 16 years old. It's so crazy because there's nothing biblical about that. There's not even anything in the Book of Mormon about that. That was just the LDS rules. You don't go to church.
Yeah.
You don't go to any dances till you're 16. Yeah.
It's that way here in Christian school in my town. They have to sign a contract. We're not going to watch movies. We're not going to do this. And then the kids get older, like, wait a minute, we actually do want to go to that movie. All of our friends are going, but we're not allowed to go because we signed a contract saying we wouldn't watch it. And they, and when they get old enough, they're like, oh, Mom, we're out. We don't want this school anymore. We want to go be normal, whatever normal is, So it's hard for kids, like you said, being raised in it and being taught this is the acceptable way to do it. And then, like you said, you weren't old enough yet. And the Sadie Hawkins dance back in the day was a big deal. That was a big damn deal. So yeah, it's a struggle. And when you're that young and you don't know, you're starting to form your own opinions and your own mindset and your own thoughts. And it's got to be a pull, of the way I'm raised and the way I'm taught versus what my friends are doing. It's being a teenager is confusing as hell to start with, right? You add that in there, it's got to be worse. It makes it next level.
100%. Our brains aren't formed yet at that age.
Yeah.
We're still forming our brains.
Yeah, and just trying to navigate teenage life is already, a handful, and then you couple that in with it, and it makes it harder for a lot of these kids.
Yeah. And I just feel for all of these young women that are out here with this. sick, disgusting pervert.
With these perverts who want to hide behind a god complex to get their rocks off is disgusting.
Right.
Trailer.
How many other people in the truck?
But Bateman refuses to answer.
How many other people are in the truck?
When another officer tries,
Explain to me what's going on. Calm down first.
Bateman was eventually arrested
Put your hands behind your back. Put your hands behind your back.
after some pushback.
So you're under arrest for endangering, okay?
The next day, he made bail, but was arrested again on federal charges in Colorado City, Arizona, at his encampment. Arizona authorities taking in 8 young girls found there, all said to be Bateman's wives.
And I've been thinking about this, and I've now come to look at a guy like Sam Bateman as a school shooter.
Okay.
And we've learned in the tragic history of school shooters that when it starts happening,
This is a really good analogy by Mike right here. I really appreciate his analogy in this. Hold on, let me back up just 30 seconds so you can hear his analogy of Sam Bateman to a school shooter.
Okay.
And we've learned in the tragic history of school shooters that when it starts happening, you can't sit around and wait for backup or wait for the ideal conditions to take this down. When somebody is targeting children, you need to go after them aggressively and bring them down. And nobody did that with Sam. And he was, again, we could talk about all of the red flags and the multiple interactions with law enforcement before anything happened, when nothing happened. And it should have. And so, I probably sound a little, upset about this, and I am.
No, you don't sound too upset. It's
Having done
upsetting.
this for so many years, I just wanted to work better, and it didn't. Sam was so obvious, so seeking attention, so overt in his behavior, and it was obvious what was going on. And and again, if he hadn't gotten pulled over serendipitously in Flagstaff and all the body cam video of the kids pouring out of that box trailer, law enforcement is now embarrassed at this point. This story, lots of people have been telling about it, is they're spilling in front of and then some weeks later, it wasn't until the FBI went and raided the place. Again, and he's raping 2 or 3 girls every day. So some weeks later adds up in this context. And so, I want people to learn from these stories, because I think you can. Law enforcement, the history has been sort of us exposing these guys and then waiting for the cops to catch up. And I think somebody should have more.
Rachel, I don't know that there are underground programs. That's a good question, though. And if there are underground programs, we should be supporting those. But Mike mentioned a little earlier a program that he recommended, or that he had high praise for, called Holding Out Hope.
Yeah, Holding Out Hope is a big organization. Megan has spoken of them on her channel as well, and I know that they're an organization that they can reach out to for help, but I'm also willing to say there are underground programs. I just they find them through each other. Okay, let's just say that the ones that do make it out, they help the other ones, and then sometimes they have to go underground and go into hiding. They have to, for their own safety and their own benefit. But the organization he just spoke of, they do a lot of good work, especially for people who want to get out and stay out. They really help them out a lot, and get the counseling you need as well, because you're that struggle that comes with the getting out. Because you feel like you got to turn your back on your family, your religion, your everything you thought you knew. You have to turn your back on that, or figure out how you incorporate that into your new life going forward.
Right. And we actually saw that in the Operation Dragon Eye video, where they talked about after they rescue them, then they put them with programs that will help them get medical attention, but also get the psychological, emotional, mental health treatment that they need to after coming from a situation like that. Yeah, it's the programming, the brainwashing, it's all a part and parcel to it all. Let's see. We're back to Mike and Lauren.
Aggressively exposed him. I should have done more than just offer my video up, and I'll regret that till the day I die.
Do you hear that? This is from a guy who's been knee deep in investigative journalism for 40 plus years. Legendary award-winning journalist. And if he says something along the lines of, I will regret that till the day I die, you know that's meaningful and impactful and something we should be paying attention to. It's like, oh God, I wish I could remember the detective's name that interviewed Elvis Fields. And Elvis Fields left the car and turned around and he said,
Murphy?
if you find, yes. He said, if you find my spit or my DNA on any one of the girls, well, I have a chance to explain it away. And Murphy did not follow up with that. And he said on the stand while I was sitting there watching, that is my biggest regret of this investigation, is not following up with that statement.
Should be. And it should be. You're a cop and you have a suspect or a potential suspect saying that. And you're just like, shrugs it off and lets the guy walk on in the house and never think much of it. No, you think much of it right then. Sorry.
Walk off into his trailer. He lived in a trailer in a trailer park. Was it with his sister or near his sister?
Near the sister, I believe it was. Yeah.
And he gave her his coat.
Yes.
Anyway. Different story. Yeah, I know. I'm sorry. I can't. When you talk about
on
regret,
that conversation, we're never going to get off of it. We here tonight at 9:00. We'll be like, damn.
Yeah, we'll go past Nate's interview if we get down that rabbit hole.
Right? We'll be like, Nate, who? Lori, who? Sorry, guys. Joe and I went down that rabbit hole and never came back out. We almost didn't come out of that one.
No.
I am.
No, you don't sound too upset. It's
Having done
upsetting.
this for so many years, I just wanted to work better, and it didn't. Sam was so obvious, so seeking attention, so overt in his behavior, and it was obvious what was going on. And and again, if he hadn't gotten pulled over serendipitously in Flagstaff and all the body cam video of the kids pouring out of that box trailer, law enforcement is now embarrassed at this point. This story, lots of people have been telling about it, is they're spilling in front of and then some weeks later, it wasn't until the FBI went and raided the place again, and he's raping 2 or 3 girls every day. So some weeks later adds up in this context, and so I want people to learn from these stories because I think you can. Law enforcement.
Do you hear that? I want people to learn from these stories. So that's you and me, people. That's like everybody in this chat, everybody watching this right now. Award-winning journalist wants us to learn from these stories. So let's learn from them. What can we learn from them?
The history has been sort of us exposing these guys and then waiting for the cops to catch up. And I think somebody should have more aggressively exposed him. I should have done more than just offer my video up, and I'll regret that till the day I die.
No, this story helped me understand you and your quest a little bit more. Thank you for sharing it. What you're saying is history repeats itself. What did we learn from Warren Jeffs? That took Texas, right? Like it's the same thing. Warren Jeffs could have been stopped a lot earlier too. Sam Bateman could have been stopped a lot earlier. And there are a lot of people that think, but even me, maybe being a bit of but I saw hope and yeah.
I don't think your hope is misguided. I mean, again, the town's changed. The town is in a much better place, and most of those are ex-FLDS people. I think there's great hope, and let me give you and I'll lose it on this, but let me give you the greatest hope that I have seen. Elizabeth Roundy fighting for her children, and then.
Are you paying attention? So Elizabeth Roundy, that's the mother of the 2 children that are missing right now. That still has hope for them. So if this guy has hope, we can all have hope too.
Those kids are alive. They just
let me give you the.
Yep. Yes, they are.
I don't feel like they were taken to be unalived. They were taken to return to the compound to do the work that Warren Jeffs wants them to do. So that's why those kids were taken. And I know they're alive. They just got to find them. But how do you get in there to find them when they're being hidden? And when the cops are lied to? I feel like the cops can do more too, but I don't know legally how far they can go. And especially in this case with the mother having full custody, if they get a good idea of where these kids are, they should be able to go in legally and take them back.
Right. There are exigent circumstances, yes.
Mhm.
You can also send somebody in undercover. Do you think I would fit in a prairie dress?
You might shave now. I want to recommend you shave. They might not take you in, hey, sir, ma'am, you got a beard. That's not allowed here.
Oh, I have to like have some levity in there somewhere. This is such a heavy topic. I have to make a joke every once in a while, even though it's not funny.
Let me give you, and I'll lose it on this, but let me give you the greatest hope that I have seen. Elizabeth Rowney fighting for her children. And then the young women who were the victims, the survivors of Sam Bateman, sitting in the courtroom and watching these little girls. Some of them are, in their early teens, and to see them get on the witness stands with the maturity and the resolve and this understanding of themselves and seizing their power. It was remarkable. And for me, that is what continues. Those kids are the only thing that matters. Sam Bateman is a freaking buffoon. And I wish I could live that moment where I first met him over again, knowing what I know now. But Warren's, a mean-spirited, manipulative, narcissistic bastard. And the irony of this story is I frequently notice their victims are not randos. They're not victimizing you and me. It's the people who are the most faithful who are their victims, and with the kind of power they have over.
Did you catch that? It's not random people they're victimizing. It's the people that are the most faithful to their teachings that they're victimizing. That's the religion aspect, Salty, that you keep harping on. That's religion is the means and manner of the manipulation.
Exactly.
Mean-spirited, manipulative, narcissistic bastard. And the irony of this story, as I frequently notice, their victims are not randos. They're not victimizing you and me. It's the people who are the most faithful who are their victims, and with the kind of power they have over them, the women, the women and girls have zero say, and there's all these girls in their testimony, remarkable. And I want you to make the point. This is what sustains me, to watch these young girls seize their lives. Some of them, a couple of them just graduated from high school. They're in college. They're working, and all of them have understood, I'm free. And they got up on the witness stand and said this to the Liddell and the Beislein brothers, Torrance, said it to Sam in their witness statements. And these are remarkable young women, and they're the heroes of this story. And they're really the only people in the Sam Bateman matter that are heroes, because I think everybody else who is associated with this, all law enforcement and everybody else, failed these young women.
Yeah. I want to, and maybe Mike, you have another idea.
I think once again, me, I'm highly critical of law enforcement that doesn't do their job properly. They can be critical of me for me not doing my job properly too. I'm open to that 100%. But Mike points this out too, and I love it.
Some of them, a couple of them just graduated from high school. They're in college. They're working, and all of them have understood, I'm free. And they got up on the witness stand and said this to the Liddell and the Beislein brothers, Torrance, said it to Sam in their witness statements. And these are remarkable young women, and they're the heroes of this story. And they're really the only people in the Sam Bateman matter that are heroes, because I think everybody else who is associated with this, all law enforcement and everybody else, failed these young women.
All law enforcement and everybody else failed these young women. That's powerful. All right, I'm going to fast forward to another part of this interview that I thought was pretty good. Then we got one more after that. This is just like, I literally could play this interview front to back and probably 4 times in a row.
Again, 2022 revelation of Warren Jeffs.
Yeah.
It feels like Sam Bateman sort of manipulated his followers, and it seems like it was almost like an offshoot of FLDS. He took FLDS members, but it was sort of an offshoot. Not every FLDS member, but he sort of said Warren Jeffs is no longer in charge. Correct me if I'm wrong. You're the expert here, not me. Warren Jeffs is no longer in charge, or I am. But like, are other people still following Warren Jeffs? I'm a little bit confused by that aspect when it comes to this 2022 revelation that may or may not still be in play despite Warren Jeffs being behind bars.
That's a good question. Everybody pay attention. Get out your notepad. Warren Jeffs is in prison ordering things, including a 2022 edict. I forget what she just called it. But
Yes.
also Sam Bateman is doing his own thing as well, where he claims to be the FLDS prophet.
But
So
who
we
else
almost
do we
have
know that was claiming to be a prophet?
right. Exactly.
And so come again with he's not trying to copy them, because he certainly was.
Yeah.
Chad. I'm talking about Chad. Everybody wants to. I've also seen over the years, everybody's wanting to focus so hard on Lori, because how could a woman let this happen to her children? And blaming it on Chad. Chad told her these kids were demons, blah, blah, blah. Lori believed it too, but Chad was a big instrument in that as well. Chad's influence is what it was. He was the leader of this said cult. It wasn't Lori Vallow wasn't the damn leader. It was Chad.
You know what? That's what makes their dynamic so interesting to me and puzzling to me at the same time. Because so all of the LDS, FLDS, RLDS, they're patriarchal religions. Men hold the power, men make the rules. And Lori went to the damn temple and got herself a higher priesthood than the Melchizedek priesthood from Moroni. So was there a power struggle going on there between Chad and Lori? Like what?
No, I think it was equal. He was making her believe. Look, Chad had to make Lori believe whatever he needed to make Lori believe. And if we need to make her believe she's next to God and knows as much as God, then so be it. They fed each other. The perfect storm began to brew when those two met. Lori was already in this rabbit hole. That's how she found Chad. They didn't just bump into one another at the grocery store one day. Hey, let's start an affair. No. She found Chad because she was following her religion, which led her to Chad.
Right. Through the visions of glory and other stuff.
Yeah. It all started with religion.
I think there's still a lot of people very faithful to Mr. Jeffs. And I think there's still a handful of people faithful to Sam Bateman up in Colorado City and Hilldale as I understand. And, I'm not exactly sure what the conditions, and again, this is getting more nuanced. The conditions for Sam to go rogue were created by Warren, because he tore apart families, and now people are living in it. And Sam really gathered up women and girls from two families, the Johnson family and the Beislein family.
Okay.
Did you catch that? He said,
yeah,
the conditions for Sam Bateman to go rogue were created by Warren Jeffs.
Mm-hmm.
That's huge. Like there was a vacuum that was created when he went to prison, and Sam Bateman took advantage of that.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure what the conditions, and again, this is getting more nuanced. The conditions for Sam to go rogue were created by Warren, because he tore apart families, and now people are living in it. And Sam really gathered up women and girls from two families, the Johnson family and the Beislein family.
Okay.
Because he got the male caretakers, guys who had basically been given, they were still faithful to war, and now they were in charge of a couple of dozen women and girls. And they got behind Sam and gave all of them to Sam. Because, you know, and what was the motive? Well, I think at the end of the day, the men wanted new, younger wives, and they couldn't take it. And now Sam is giving them an avenue to get a new family, to get a new.
That's it. He hits on what his theory about is what happened is the men wanted younger wives. One wife is enough. Actually, 0 wives is enough for me right now. Thank you.
All these multiple marriage people I don't get to begin with, but hey, I get I'm way different than most people. But yeah, I don't even want 1, let alone 15.
Yeah, and can you imagine though that it's like it's so male dominated that it's the man that quote unquote gets to have multiple wives, and it's not the other way around. Like who determined that? Who determined that rule?
A lot of religions, the husband's the head of household. The wife is a step down beneath her husband. Even in mainstream, if you want to call it that, organized religions, it's still the same way. Your husband's the head of household. You are just 1 step beneath him at all times, and you, as the woman, are the caregiver to the children. Now, that's a basic man and women's role based out of religion, you know, and I don't have a problem with being my family's caretaker. But now we know a lot of men are just as hands-on as women and vice versa. It's like a 50-50 thing. But yeah, a lot of these religions, or all of these religions, are like that. Their husband is first, you are second, and everything else falls in line. And we do what he says in the end.
Yeah, one of my best friends is the pastor of a non-denominational Christian church, and he could probably cite you 10 scriptures right now that out of the Bible that say that women should be
subordinate.
Yeah, I don't know what the word is. Yeah,
yeah.
That men should be the head of the household, and women should respect them. I guess I'll put it that way.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's all I got to say about that.
Yeah. Don't get me started.
No, we already started and we're finished, just like that.
Had basically been given, they were still faithful to war, and now they were in charge of a couple of dozen women and girls. And they got behind Sam and gave all of them to Sam. Because, you know, and what was the motive? Well, I think at the end of the day, the men wanted new, younger wives, and they couldn't take it. And now Sam is giving them an avenue to get a new family, to get a new young wife. I mean, you know, that's been the modus operandi of a lot of men over the years. Because, and then
all right, one more clip we got on this. This is such a damn good interview. Lauren, I mean, Mike is the interview, right? But Lauren is the interviewer, so good job to both of them. And thank you, Lauren, for allowing me to show clips without copyright striking me. Fingers crossed. I have a text as proof.
We got receipts.
And satisfying his own appetites. That's a dangerous position for people to be in. And if you don't call that out, you know, I am sympathetic. But I also know enough people that have gotten out and realized this is bullshit, and we don't want to be part of it anymore.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And right, and our mutual friend Danya Jessup, or you know, the first female mayor is one of those examples. Not only did she get out, she went back to her community and back to her town of Short Creek, and became the first female mayor. And boy, was that an intense,
historic
race. What a story! That was, the tension in that town was palpable. There was a division, and I remember going there daily and reporting on that. And yeah,
interesting moment for sure to witness.
Yeah. So let's go back to what brought us here together today, Mike, and that is 2 missing minors who you are very concerned about, who police are concerned enough about that they issued an Amber Alert. I don't take those Amber Alerts lightly. A mother who's worried they may have left on their own, but these are not your typical runaways. How can we help as the public? Where might they be? Because as you point out, they're not necessarily going back to Short Creek. This is not what it used to be. There's not some town with walls around it anymore. You know, where might they be?
That's the challenge for law enforcement, because again, given just the nature of how the community is scattered, Warren told them, don't assemble, because law enforcement can come after us. dispersed to the winds. And it makes it much more challenging. And over the years, with sending parents away and taking children, they have a well-established network of sort of homes run by FLDS caretakers, where you can pile a bunch of kids after you kick mom and dad out and indoctrinate them and make sure the little girls are in line to get married as soon as Warren says so. And the boys can work on work details until we kick them out, because you can't have as many boys and girls. That when you have polygamy at the industrial community level, that's what's going to happen. That's what you have to do to sustain it. And Warren understands that. Warren put out his revelation to gather up the children because he was losing control to guys like Sam and Moroni Johnson. And I don't think there's any question, one man's opinion, but that is certainly my opinion, that this historic chain of events and the revelation and the gathering up of the children were a response to Warren Jeffs and whoever the brain trust is now. We've got to allow people to have marriages. We've got to start marrying and producing children. I mean, they don't recruit from outside. The only way they sustain themselves, it's a death sentence if they stop having children. And for 10 years they did. And somebody recognized the errors of their ways, because men like Sam are going to go rogue and start picking up the girls on the fringes, the wives and mothers on the fringes who want to have babies, So there was a motive for a lot of people for a thing to break off. And Warren, I think, put a lid on that when he said, no, we're still intact. We're still doing marriages, now gathering up the kids. These two kids up in Idaho are part of that grand conspiracy that Mr. Jeffs articulated, and law enforcement can say whatever they want about it. This is a well-orchestrated conspiracy started by Jeffs or the FLDS Brain Trust to gather up the kids, counter rogue actors like Sam and Moroni, and try to bring some semblance of a community with a future going forward. And but now they're all scattered. And again, I think that this necessitates the transportation of children across state lines, which immediately makes it a federal offense. And so I'm hoping the FBI is listening and they take a charge of this, because it's not a local matter.
All right. That was an amazing interview. Gonna drop the link one more time. Go check it out. There are so many rabbit holes that he took us down. Sam Bateman, Warren Jeffs, a couple of particular families, Colorado City, Arizona, that I don't know a lot about. So you're asking me questions that I don't know answers to all of them or some of them, but there are answers out there. And I think what's most important, though, is his general broad approach to saying that when Warren Jeffs went to prison and there was the raid in Colorado City or something like that, where the feds came in and the FLDS dispersed to like 5 states. They were in Nevada, Utah, Arizona, Idaho, dispersed. And then in 2022, he released a statement saying we need to all start coming back together. That affects the current missing child Amber Alert situation with Elizabeth Roundy and her children.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Very much so. I just don't know how they're. I'm sure they're doing all they can to locate those kids. I don't know if whoever went and picked them up had a phone with them, if they could track, that kind of thing, or if they have a good idea about the car and where they may have gone. They may have eyes on them right now, just trying to figure out how to get in there to get them. I don't know. We don't know that.
The legal way that will meet the legal challenges for being able to legally go in there and get them.
And
Mom
to go
has
in there
full
safely.
custody. Yes, Mom has full custody, so it's exigent circumstances. If they do find where they are, they can. I believe they have the legal right to go get them, but then I'm not a lawyer, and I didn't stay in a Holiday Inn Express last night. We got a couple of starred comments to go over before we wrap it up here. Nope. We're not going to do that. We're going to look at the starred comments. Click one button wrong and your whole life gets messed up. Oh, thank you, Pammy. I appreciate that. You know what? I'm not getting push notifications. Let me see. I don't know what email. I don't know what email I used to sign up. That's not the right one. I'll figure it out later. Anyway, thank you, Salty, for the coffee, and Pammy, if you bought me one too, I'll see it later. I can't see it right now, but thank you. I appreciate that very much. I do like my coffee.
Mm-hmm.
I've got some white chocolate mocha creamer to use in my next cup of coffee.
There
White
you
chocolate
go.
mocha. How is prison treating Spud? You know what? Somebody I know may have reached out to Lori to contact her in prison, but I don't know that they reached out to Spud. Chud the Spud. Yeah, I
Oh,
wonder how
no.
prison is treating him.
He's probably gotten a few prison letters and requests and things of that nature, but is he ever going to do anything? I think Chad's just going to sit quietly in prison and wait for the Lori and the Lord to come save him.
I don't think that they allow interviews in prison in Idaho.
That's
So
what
I
people
don't
keep saying,
yeah.
but I just see people saying that on the YouTube streets. I don't know that
Exactly.
any of them's ever tried to interview him.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that's true or
Maybe
not.
my friend that
I've seen,
reached out to Lori can reach out to him too.
well, how come we see interviews with Thomas Creech out of Idaho from prison?
Are there?
Yeah, Thomas Creech has been sitting on death row in Idaho for years, and they just had his botched execution last year. And there's old footage out there of Creech. Now, they may have changed it since that old footage. You know what I mean? I have not honestly cared enough to look into it because I don't care if I ever hear from Chad again. I just assume not to because it's all going to be a bunch of lies, you know? Now, Lori's different because she's a narcissistic, you know what? I don't look at Lori the way everybody else does. So for me to watch that interview isn't going to trigger me the way it probably will other people. That's not what I'm watching it for. I'm not looking, you know, to let Lori trigger me or
Right. No.
get under my skin because she's Lori and she gets no power over me whatsoever. That's
And she
not why
never
I'm watching it.
changes.
Yeah,
She never
she's-
changes.
Yeah. It's just a very different Lori than that zombie we had in Idaho trials.
Was she
Very
medicated?
different.
Was she medicated then?
Some of it.
Yeah.
And she just sat there. She didn't want to be a part of her defense, you know, because they didn't listen to her. It was all about religion for Lori, and no attorney wanted to touch that with a 10-foot pole. We're not going to walk into court and say you did what you did because you did it for religious reasons. Well, why not? That's what she did it for. It may not be a defense, but that's her defense. And she didn't want to
Right.
participate because she wasn't allowed to do it her way. So that's when she got to Arizona. She found a way to get her way, but she
Right.
still fell short. It is what it is. But yeah, I'll watch tonight's interview, but I'm going to be looking at it very differently than most people, and I will not be triggered by Lori Vallow.
No.
She has no trigger power here.
She does not need any of our mental energy or emotional energy at this point.
That's what she wants to do. That's her whole
Yeah,
end game.
it's-
Let me go out here and ruffle feathers and make people mad, get them to cuss and break their stuff and beat their hands on their desk. No, I'm not doing all that. I'm gonna sit there and laugh and go, I can't believe this girl. I cannot believe this lady's sitting here. Go ahead and show you're crazy to the world, Lori. Go right ahead.
Boop, 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 boop. Wait, what do we have from Low Light?
No, the full interview will air. I was looking at Miss Woozy's comment. The full interview airs tonight on East Idaho News, I believe.
Right. Yes. And they don't allow us to portal there. So guess where we're going to portal, Salty?
Where?
We're going to portal to your show tomorrow.
Oh, yay. It's like, tomorrow, what's tomorrow? Tomorrow's Tuesday. Tomorrow's Tuesday. Yeah, my grandbaby, he's stirring around in there. I just went and checked on him. He was taking a nap because he wasn't feeling good today, so I didn't want to be on air and have to stop with interruptions with that. So I thought I'll just wait and do it in the morning. But we're going to do in the morning a full recap on the Crystal Rogers case and the trial that's happening right now in her case. We don't have cameras in Kentucky, so we can't be there for the trial, but I have followed that case for 10 years. Crystal's case is very near and dear to me, so I really want to present that, and I'm going to do that tomorrow, as well as a case update. We have Stefan Stearns has a pretrial hearing coming up on Wednesday morning. I'll be covering that as well. So I got a busy next 2 days, but today's just going to be a chilling out with the grandbaby, getting him better.
All right. Well, if you haven't subbed up to Salty, make sure you sub up to her channel so you can see those next two shows. Mitzi has a question. There's some sort of show going on called the Book of Mormon. So there is the Book of Mormon, the musical, and it's probably not what you think it is. I'm pretty sure that it's produced by, or it was written by Matt Parker and Trey Parker and Matt Stone from South Park.
Oh Lord.
So it's a parody on the Book of Mormon. It's going to be very irreverent, and if you're LDS, you might be offended enough to walk out in the middle of it. Just saying. If the Book of Mormon is showing at a venue near you, and actually I just saw it's at the Elliott Hall of Music at Purdue University.
Oh wow. I don't watch musicals.
It's an irreverent musical, though. It's going to be hilarious. I've actually never seen it. I've never been.
Yeah, I don't do musicals too much. Ruby says Stern's trial on her birthday. Oh goodness. So which trial? There's two. His pretrial hearing for CSAM is coming up on the 2nd, like I said, and there was an add-on as well. So I think they're having a 1:30 hearing on that as well on the 2nd, with jury trials slated to start July 15th on the CSAM. The murder charges in Stearns don't go up till September. Wednesday, July 2nd for Ruby. Okay, yeah, that's the pretrial hearing is on the 2nd.
All right, one more question. Boop. How many of the police officers, first responders are LDS and might that play a role for Lori, Alex, Chad? We kind of covered that a little bit when we looked at the interrogation videos of especially like Melanie Gibb and Officer Rob responding to Charles's complaint at the hotel, that body-worn cam. They identified, like Charles asked, are you LDS? Of the two officers, one was, one wasn't. But Melanie Gibb also in her police interview identified that. I think it plays a part. I think it does. I don't think they got a pass, but I don't know that like Charles's complaints were taken as seriously as they could have been. I think a lot of people, especially his family, especially, should I call out Kresha? I think Kresha might agree that the Gilbert PD did not handle his situation seriously enough the first time.
I think everybody came to that. Most people came to that conclusion or felt that, and I don't know if that's because officers were LDS or not, or did he just not have enough of them to take him completely seriously? I don't know what the failure there was.
Right. There was a failure, though. There absolutely was a failure, because if after Charles Vallow was murdered by Alex on July 11th, 2019, JJ and Tylee should not have been taken from this earth by the same people that did that.
No.
That's just, I'm maybe out on a limb there, but JJ and Tylee should still be with us.
Yeah, they should. And there's a lot of people out there who have blood on their hands.
Yep.
That didn't get charged, but
haven't been charged yet.
I'll let Jesus take care of those few people. I think he's got something to say to them that no man can say.
Yep. So thank you, Salty, for joining me today. Thank you, chat. Thank you, mods. I appreciate everybody. Going to wrap it up for today. You're going to get portaled into Salty's show for tomorrow. She's got lots of stuff for us to look at. But thanks. Thank you, Salty. I appreciate it. Thanks for jumping up here with me.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for having me. Since I'm not going live, I'm like, what will I do? Who will I talk to all day? And the grandbaby went to sleep. So I was like, well, darn. And he didn't feel good anyway. So thanks for having me. And I'll be back on tomorrow. And hopefully we'll see you guys there. But this is important stories, to talk about and to keep. And the more we can spread the awareness, I think that, and beyond small groups, and you think about it in these areas where these compounds are and a lot of LDS members are and FDLS members are, you need the word to get out beyond that spectrum. But I don't know what the answer is, but I think we can just keep working toward it by just shining a light on these cases.
Absolutely. Let's keep shining our light on into the darkness.
Let's do.
All
right,
right,
you guys
everybody.
have a great day. I'll see you tomorrow.
We'll see you
Thanks,
later.
Joe. Bye.
Bye.
See you soon, my lovely friends. Have a good afternoon. Don't forget to stop back by and see me real soon. Thank you for stopping in. Thanks for saying hi. Together we can make a difference if we try. Thank you for stopping in. Thanks for saying hi. Together we can make a difference if we try. Thank you for stopping in. Thanks for saying hi. Together we can make a difference.